So here's a fun way to really enjoy oud in fragrances. Blend them with fruits. Are you a fan of fruity oud fragrances? We're going to talk about fruity oud fragrances coming right up. Thanks so much for tuning in. It's Sebastian. Yes, today I'm talking about fruity oud fragrances. Are you a fan of this particular style? Do you enjoy oud in fragrances? Do you like rose and oud? Recently I did a video on rose and oud fragrances. Several of you were requesting me to do that. But I thought to myself, a combination of fruits and oud are a really great combo of notes together, and ouds and fruits do work really great, and they make fragrances a little more interesting, a little more fun and playful, even though oud note I find to be a bit serious in fragrances. So I've got some great fragrances here that combine oud and fruits. Do you like this combination? Let me know. Put a comment down below. We've got some bonus options as well after the outro that are designer, but the rest of the collection are more luxury designer or maybe perhaps just regular niche houses that are on the luxury side. But we're going to start off at 21 with a fragrance that's mentioning that there's oud here, but there's a lot of fruitiness in it. It's Blockade from Mind Games, this one right here. And Blockade from Mind Games does have a hinting of something like Aventus. It's that style of fragrance, but very fruity with mangoes. There's some greenness, some tomato leaves, patchouli, bergamot, pink pepper. There's oud, mango blossom, cyclamen, amber, suede, lavender, star anise. I think the combination is great. It's not anything that I've never smelled before. This is Mind Games' take on something like in the genre of Aventus, and I think it's pleasant in that you experience the oud, but it's not quite overwhelming. It's mostly about the fruitiness in here. So this is Blockade, starting things off at 21. Then moving on to the House of Zoologist Perfumes, it's Camel. I have ranked this pretty low. It's not one of my favorite, zoologist perfumes fragrances. Although I enjoyed it before, I've gotten bored of it. So as I'm going through the list of fragrances, it's ended up here at number 20. It's dried fruits, myrrh, dates, frankincense, civet, amber, oud, cinnamon, jasmine. So you've got all these different notes. It's very Middle Eastern inspired. Of course, Camel comes from the Middle East, so it's a given that it has all these kind of notes. Fruity for sure, but with the dried fruits. Definitely resinous. Got that kind of ambery resinous touch. The dates adds the sweetness. There's funky animalic stuff in here as well, like civet, and then of course smokiness from the frankincense. So definitely captures the Middle East, but I think it's a bit too animalic. What do you guys think? Let me know. Camel from the House of Zoologist Perfumes is at number 20. Then moving on to the House of XERJOFF. I think back to back, both of these fragrances are created by Chris Maurice or Christian Carbonell. He goes by two different names. This is Oud Stars Indochine from the House of XERJOFF, came out in 2019. I guess there's a previous version of this. So this is a bit on the funky side with the oud once again. This does feature mango, but along with the oud, there's also strawberries, musk, and caramel. So it doesn't seem like it's overly complex with the notes, the layers and layers of notes, but it does wear pretty complex, and it does get fruity next to that kind of musky animalic oud that's in here. I've ranked it low because, again, once again, it's a bit on the animalic side, but I wanted to highlight it here in case you guys enjoy animalic fragrances and you like the idea of a fruity fragrance with oud, then definitely check out Oud Stars Indochine from the 2019 release. Next, going to the House of Royal Crown, it's YTZMA, this one right here. So, interesting with this fragrance, I get lots of leather, but there's no mention of leather here. But they do credit dried fruits, and there's loads of it. There's definitely a fruitiness here. Also with oud, there's tobacco, ambergris, cypress, castoreum, sandalwood, peach blossom, mandarin, nutmeg, oak moss, and vanilla. The combination is really, really great. I wish there was a bit more fruitiness. I think the dried fruits in here pretty prominent, but there's also nondescript fruitiness here, which makes for not necessarily a really fruity accent in the fragrance. Whereas you've got a lot of oud, there's a tobacco, it's a bit animalic, and lots of leather. I'm picking up a lot of leather here. I don't get this fragrance, but maybe it's creating an accord with the different notes. I wanted a bit more fruitiness, but still, if you like the idea of a fruity fragrance that's nondescript, not overly fruity, but has a fruity presence with all these notes and leathery touches, then try YTZMA from the House of Royal Crown. So up next, going to the House of OMANLUXURY, we've got two fragrances from them. This is the first of two. This is ZAFAR, this one right here. Both of these oud fragrances are pretty complex oud fragrances, and both of them does feature fruity notes. This is oud Olibanum, bergamot, rose, vanilla, amber, cinnamon, grapefruit, apples, pink pepper, musk, lily of the valley, orris, tonka, and orange blossom. This one, on the other hand, does start pretty funky, but the dry down is pretty amazing. You have to get past that funkiness. If you're challenged by animalics, the oud in here is a bit challenging, but the dry down is amazing, and that's what you're going to have to sit through to get to, because the combination and the blend, when it's dried down together, all of it creates a magic potion that's quite intoxicating. But be warned, it does have that funk when you first spray it, but it's super delicious when it dries down. ZAFAR, this is a great fragrance. Next, going to the house of SOSPIRO, it's ERBA Gold, this one right here. This is such a robust fragrance. All the fragrances from this house are pretty in your face and big, even though I believe these are all eau de parfum concentration from what I remember. I could be wrong, but I think these are eau de parfum. But this, once again, has a funk with the oud, and it's on the dry side, but lots of oranges, oud, peaches, melons, lemons, apples, saffron, bergamot, vanilla, amber, musk. Imagine having this kind of a fruit salad with the peaches and the melons and the apples, and then drizzle it with oud, like perhaps it's some kind of a flavoring or something. But that smell with the oud and the funk and the woodiness and all these, fruits and citruses together with some leathery touches and things like that, some sweetness from vanilla is what you get with this one. But once again, be warned, it's a bit on the funky side. The oud is a bit animalic, so if you're challenged with that, definitely be warned. This is not overly animalic though, so you just have to get through like that light animalic touch. So this is ERBA Gold from the house of SOSPIRO. And then next, going to the second and last OMANLUXURY fruity oud fragrance. We've got Oud Aquilaria, this one right here. The first fragrance was created by Pierre Constantin Guerres. I think that's how you say his name. Oud Aquilaria, on the other hand, is created by Dominique Ropion. I think he's got several fragrances for OMANLUXURY that he's created. This, on the other hand, is oud apples, damask and Bulgarian rose, rosemary, cloves, patchouli, amber, pink pepper, sage, and labdanum. This is definitely a lot easier to wear, and this does have great longevity and things like that. And it's, once again, a great combination of notes. Maybe perhaps it hints at a little bit of something like Dominique Ropion's creation for Frederic Malle called Promise, but that one did not have oud, although people said it did have oud. So maybe it does have kind of like a distant relation to that, because it kind of reminds me a little bit of that, but they do go in different directions. And again, this is warm, spicy, earthy, aromatic, and then of course fruits, rose, and oud. This is Oud Aquilaria from the house of OMANLUXURY. Check that out if you don't know it. And this is a fragrance I recently spoke about, and I'm featuring it here because this is what triggered me doing a fruity oud fragrances video. This is from a house called Les Fleurs du Golfe. It's Sugar Oud, this one right here. And even though this is mentioning only oud wood and fruity notes I get, but they mention passion fruit here, it's a great combination. Oud and passion fruit, combined to be really intoxicatingly delicious, and it makes for the oud easier to wear. That's exactly what happens with fruity notes in fragrances with oud. When they're funky, they're animalic, a bit off-putting, the fruitiness tones it down, and that's kind of what you get with this one here. They mention oud wood and also passion fruit. I get sugary notes. I get other fruity notes that come in that are a bit nondescript, and it makes for an easy wear. The fragrance does have that kind of Middle Eastern edge. I also pick up a little bit of a saffron-y leather thing in here, but a great smell, really wonderful, and definitely worth checking out. It's Sugar Oud from the house of Les Fleurs du Golfe. Are you familiar with that house? Let me know. Put a comment down below. That does remind me of fragrances from the house of brands like XERJOFF and anything in that kind of ballpark. Alright, up next, going to the house of Lumari. It's Saja or Saya, this one right here with this most beautiful red bottle. Kind of a blood red bottle, as you can see. This is a super spicy fragrance with pink pepper, rose, oud, patchouli, woodsy notes, raspberry, saffron, pears, violet, pink pepper, and incense. I must say, oud pairs really wonderfully with either raspberries, mangoes, apples, perhaps the passion fruit as well. These fruits really blend beautifully with oud. And here we've got something a bit more like I would say something a bit more like Portrait of a Lady, but with the oud touch in there, because the rose in here is so super spicy. The patchouli is also pretty prominent and things like that. And so the raspberry adds this fruity layer along with the pears in here as well. And then also the violet. I think the violet also provides a bit of a fruitiness in this fragrance as well. It's super potent and amazing, and a really wonderful offering from the house of Lumari. It's Saya or Saja. Definitely check that out. Next, going to the house of Parfum Dusita, it's Montri. This one right here. Are you familiar with this one? This is oud with roses. There's patchouli, leather, tobacco, saffron, jasmine, orris, oregano, and dried fruits. The dried fruits really does add a smooth layer to the fragrance. The oud is a bit funky, but not overly animalic. In fact, not really animalic. And then the rose oud combo does do that kind of a creation where it's oud and rose, but this one has a lot of patchouli as well, and also has somewhat of a DNA of past fragrances from Parfums Dusita. So I feel like they've got like a base notes that they're pulling from previous fragrances, because you can recognize the smell in here with some of the other fragrances from this house, and that's what I like about it, a recognizability, and also the fact that there's lots of oud, rose, patchouli here, and then those dried fruits that come in to give it a sweet smoothness. But you got the tobacco and saffron in here as well. Those are pretty prominent for a unique and interesting fragrance combining oud, roses, and fruits, and it smells nothing like any of these other fragrances that I'm talking about today here. Very, very unique. So it's Montri at number 12 from the house of Parfums Dusita. Next, going to a house called Stellar Scents. This is East. This one right here. I hope it's supposed to be like this. Anyway, I think it's like this. But the Stellar Scents is a really great house that I discovered last year in the south of France during a show that I went to, a perfume show, and I really fell in love with the fragrances because they're eau de parfum concentration, but really robust, intense fragrances, just the way I like. This one is not overwhelming with the oud. It's more about the pineapple and fruits that are in here. It's not necessarily like telling me what kind of fruits there are, but I'm getting lots of pineapple, but I'm also getting fruits like peaches and mango and apples and things like that to give you an overdose of fruitiness here with oud. The oud is very, very easy to wear, and I feel like oud takes a back seat, but really does add a backbone to the fragrance here, along with some vanilla and white flowers. It's super delicious. This is a fruity floral fragrance for folks that don't like a lot of oud, but want that little substance in there from the oud. So this is East from the house of Stellar Scents. Really great offering. And this is a surprise for me, this fragrance from the house of Electromus London, Rodant. Are you guys familiar with this one? Wow, it's good. It's so smooth, even though it's that rose, oud, raspberry, patchouli combo. And it does hint a little bit at Saja. But when you compare these two together, Saja and Rodant, Saja is a lot drier. This is a lot more smoother and creamier for some reason. There's definitely a difference about that. So in addition to those notes, we've got tea, cloves, pears, saffron, pink pepper, amber, musk, and lots of other goodies here. But it's such a smooth wear. It's rose, oud, fruitiness, and then also this very cozy element about this fragrance. And I think I'm getting that from the tea. There's supposedly tea in this, and whenever I see tea in fragrances, there's this kind of smooth coziness about them. This is Rodant from the house of Electromus London. Let me know if you're familiar with that one. The next one we're talking about is from the house of the Spirit of Dubai. It's Turath, this one right here. Overly complex fragrance, but super, super delicious, with lots of different notes, including dried fruits, oud, rose, strawberries, apples, peaches, other fruits, spices, candied fruits, pineapple, vanilla, incense, amber, for this very, very intoxicating, very, very complex, fruity, oudy, floral gourmand. It is so super delicious. I would call this an amber floral with the addition of the oud and the fruits kind of a thing, but it is an overdose of fruits and it blends beautifully with the oud. The oud doesn't really shout out too much. It's just really, really nicely blended with the oud. Really balanced, very, very balanced. Really delicious fragrance. Turath from the house of the Spirit of Dubai. Let me know if you know that house and if you've sampled their fragrances. So up next, we've got a fragrance from the house of Montal. It's Oud Amazing. Are you guys familiar with Oud Amazing? This was a fairly late discovery for me, but so, so delicious. This does remind me of fragrances like Coco Mademoiselle from Chanel or Angel, but with a Montal touch and also oudy presence. It's oud, figs, patchouli, vanilla, grapes, leather, pear, orange, orris, jasmine, bergamot, white musk. It is super, super delicious. Really beautiful trail. It's fruity with the figs. It's not the green figs. It's the fruits of the figs. And then the oud together. Intoxicating combination. If you're looking for an alternative to those two fragrances I mentioned, the Coco Mademoiselle or Angel with the Montal touch, the oud and fig and things like that, definitely try Oud Amazing. I think it's super, super sexy and absolutely love it. But next at number 7, it's Ombre Nomade from the house of Louis Vuitton. This is oud, frankincense, raspberries, and benzoin. One of the best designer oud fragrances, I think. Are you guys aware of this fragrance? Have you sampled it? Ombre Nomade is amazing. A lot of people mention rose. I don't get a lot of rose from this. I do maybe get some faint touches of rose way in the back, way in the back, like it's hidden. It does come out once in a while, but most of the time it's about the oud, the frankincense, the raspberries, and the ambery touches of the benzoin, which is really, really delicious combination. Perhaps you get some birch, geranium, and other notes, and then of course that rose as well. But for me, it's not very, very rosy, which is nice because it gets boring with the rose and oud combo. If I do want roses with this fragrance, I layer it with Les Sables roses from the same house, or find something simplistic rosy, layer it with this, you get a bit of a rosy touch. Anyway, Ombre Nomade from the house of Louis Vuitton. It's a wonderful, wonderful fragrance. So this is a collection called Night Veils from Byredo. They have the vanilla fragrance, they have a tobacco, and various other fragrances. And I really, really recommend this collection for really wonderful, long-lasting extrait de parfum concentration fragrances. They come in 50 ml, and they're really, really great quality offerings. Rouge Chaotique is the latest release. It's definitely a very fruity oud. According to the Byredo website, they have upcycled patch oud, which is a patchouli oud combo, along with saffron, plums, cassis, praline, upcycled oak wood, papyrus, bergamot, lemons. I like this combination of plums with the patch oud, whatever they call it, patchouli and oud together. It's a great combo. I love patchouli. I love, well, oud once in a while, and together it makes for a great wear. But the plums in here are kind of juicy, a bit, robust, kind of smelling very, very plummy. Plump fruitiness comes in along with the cassis and a little bit of a chocolatey kind of a praline touch in here, but lots of woods, lots of aromatics and some citruses, and of course leathery touches from saffron comes in as well to give you this really, really delicious combination. It does hint a little bit of tobacco mandarin, but I feel like it's the DNA. It goes in a different direction, but there is that reminder in this fragrance as well. So it's Rouge Chaotique at number 6. Then moving on to the house of Maison Crivelli, it's Oud Maracuja, this one right here. Really, really wonderfully fruity oud fragrance with lots of fruits in here. Very fruity touch. It's passion fruits, abelia, saffron, Turkish rose, patchouli, benzoin, leather amber, vanilla ladin, and makigala wood. Really, really great job done here. It's created by Jordi Fernandez. It's a very robust extrait de parfum, very long lasting, but also fun and playful because of the fruitiness in here next to the oud. Oud is not overly powerful, but I think it's there. It really does anchor the fragrance, balances it out with its woods, with all the fruits in there. So it's Oud Maracuja from the house of Maison Crivelli. Alright, next fragrance, going to the house of Guerlain, it's Oud Nude. Are you guys familiar with this one? Man, this is such a cozy fragrance. It's so smooth. The oud in here, very probably Western oud, not anything funky, which I quite like, and this really does wear great. And then it's meshed with almonds, raspberries, vanilla, sandalwood, atlas cedar, musk, incense, and cumin. The cumin is fairly faint, not really there. It's just a little bit of snap, crackle, and pop in the fragrance next to all that smoothness. For me, it's a very smooth wear, and I think it's the fact that there's the vanilla, the sandalwood, and the almonds together to create this very, very smooth ride. But it's super delicious, very, very cozy, fruity, oud, wonderful gourmandish fragrance. This is Oud Nude from the house of Guerlain. And I got to feature this one. In fact, I featured it yesterday in a video on So Avant-Garde's 30% off promotion. It's Ursa from Tiziana Terenzi. If you are in the market for fragrances from So Avant-Garde, go there and check out the sale. It's 30% off most fragrances, minus the Mind Games fragrances, obviously. Mind Games, I have a 10% discount code on. But Ursa has been a favorite fragrance of mine for some time. I absolutely love it, from the house of Tiziana Terenzi. Terenzi. Yes, it's like a clone or a dupe or an alternative of something like Straight to Heaven with additional notes that give it a really intense experience. It's dried fruits, patchouli, leather, oud, tobacco, rum, incense, elemi, nutmeg, vetiver, olibanum, vanilla. Super, super intoxicating. There's definitely a bit of a funk in here from the leather and the oud possibly, but once you strip away those notes, you get very similar idea of Straight to Heaven from Kilian, but I much prefer this one because it's so robust and intense. This is Ursa from the house of Tiziana Terenzi at number 3. Next, at number 2, it's Marc-Antoine Barrois B683 Extrait for really beast mode experience here, created by Quinton Biche. This is basically taking the original B683 into an animalic, funky, intense, oudy, fruity direction. Lots of oud here with saffroline, violet leaves, green apples, sandalwood, patchouli, pink pepper, cumin, and vanilla. Yes, the cumin does come in. It's such a nice breath of fresh air next to the very crisp, crunchy, juicy, drippy apples that are in here. Lots of gorgeous notes like that. Violet leaves also gives you a bit of ozonic crunch to the fragrance, but leathery touches from the saffroline, woods and earthy notes and spices together. Super masculine, but you know, it's balanced out with that fruitiness of the apples in here, the green apples. Really wonderful offering, B683 from the house of Marc-Antoine Barrois. That is the Extrait de Parfum edition, of course. Very, very highly concentrated. Last but not least, at number 1, it's the Moon from Frederic Malle. Are you guys familiar with this one? Absolutely one of the best fruity oud combination fragrances, and I can't get enough of the smell of it. I've gone through a 50 ml bottle already. Really loved wearing it. I wore it all throughout the pandemic and then on to until the beginning of this year. Now I've got this 100 ml and the prices have gone up on this, but still it's so, so good. It's raspberries, lychee fruit, saffron, olibanum, which is frankincense, Turkish rose, oud, and leather together. The combination is so, so intoxicating. It's the kind of fragrance that's not necessarily really uber intense, dense, thick. There is a kind of an ethereal quality about it, but it has great longevity. And again, the combination, whatever Julian Rasquinet did here, created a masterpiece? Something really, really amazing, I should say. Anyway, the Moon is so good from the house of Frederic Malle, and I ranked that at number 1. Anyway, those are my thoughts on these fruity oud fragrances. Let me know your thoughts on these fruity oud fragrances, and also let me know if there's anything else out there for me to check out that's considered a fruity oud. Put a comment down below so I can find out. Don't forget to stay around for 2 bonus, less expensive designer options after the outro. But thanks so much for tuning in today. If you have any questions or comments, please do list below. Please like this video. Please share it. Follow me on Instagram and Facebook, and I'll be back with more videos very soon. Have a good one. Goodbye. Okay, I did promise I have 2 bonus options here for you. We've got 2 less expensive designer options for you to check out. First of which is a flanker to a very long-standing Hugo Boss fragrance called Boss Bottled, or number 6. This is Boss Bottled Oud. This one right here. Are you familiar with this one? First, I thought the combination was a bit odd. Then I got really into it because originally the fragrance itself was woody, appley, lots of green apple like crunch and sweet juiciness there. Fruitiness, of course, with cinnamon and things like that. But here they've added oud, so it's a Western oud. It's not anything off-putting or challenging, but maybe it is a little bit uncomfortable when I first started wearing it, but now I do enjoy this particular fragrance. The combination is great because oud is there. It adds a bit of funk, but definitely very Western, along with apples, sandalwood, cinnamon, saffron, and cloves. And if you're more into the designer world, this is something maybe you can try if you're looking into getting into the world of ouds, Western ouds, fruity ouds. That's Boss Bottled Oud. And then the next one's really good, by the way. This is from the house of Brioni. It's Eau de Parfum Intense, this one right here. Really a great job here with the oud, green apple note. There's ambroxan, there's saffron, patchouli, vanilla, bergamot, tangerine, and pink pepper. I think if you've enjoyed the original and you want something a little more intense, less violet leaves, more green apple juiciness, crisp crunchiness, definitely check out Brioni's Eau de Parfum Intense. I think it's a great fragrance. Out of the entire collection, I think my favorite is the Eau de Parfum Intense. I really, really love this one from the whole house of Brioni with the current releases of their fragrances. So if you haven't checked this one out, check out Brioni Eau de Parfum Intense, or Boss Bottled Oud for two less expensive, designer-focused fruity oud fragrances. Anyway, thanks so much for tuning in today. Stay tuned for another video tomorrow. Bye-bye.